The caseworker stared at the computer screen for so long that Maria Bennett thought something had gone wrong with her application. Her hands tightened around the strap of her worn handbag, while her 6-year-old daughter sat beside her, quietly coloring a picture of a house with a red roof. Maria had come to the assistant's office expecting embarrassment, paperwork, and maybe another rejection. She had not expected the elderly woman behind the desk to suddenly stop typing, remove her glasses, and whisper, "This can't be the same person." Maria looked down at her faded blouse and scuffed shoes, then at the folder resting on the desk. Inside that folder was a Harvard degree, years of academic achievement, and a life that had once seemed full of promise. But none of that mattered when your refrigerator was almost empty and your child asked whether dinner would be cereal again. If you believe that kindness can change a person's life and that everyone deserves a second chance, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Humanity Tales for more stories about compassion, courage, and the power of never giving up. 3 years earlier, Maria had been living what many people would have considered a successful life. She had graduated from Harvard with honors and earned a master's degree in public policy. She had worked for a respected consulting firm in Boston, rented a beautiful apartment, and believed she was finally building the future her parents had sacrificed everything to give her. Then she met Daniel. Daniel was charming, ambitious, and incredibly supportive of her career. When Maria became pregnant, he promised that they would build a family together. Their daughter, Lily, was born on a rainy November morning, and for a while, Maria believed nothing could possibly go wrong. But slowly, Daniel changed. He started coming home late. Then he stopped coming home at all. His promises became excuses, and his excuses eventually became silence. One morning, Maria woke up to find a note on the kitchen counter saying he had accepted a job in another state and needed space. He left behind unpaid bills, an empty bank account, and a mother holding a newborn baby who suddenly had to figure out how to survive alone. Maria tried to keep working, but childcare consumed almost everything she earned. She began working longer hours, sleeping less, and missing precious moments with Lily. Then her company downsized. Her position disappeared overnight. At first, Maria refused to believe she could not recover. She sent dozens of applications every week. She attended interviews wearing the same navy suit, carefully repaired at the sleeves. Recruiters smiled when they saw Harvard on her resume, but some saw the gap in her employment history. Others questioned how committed she could be as a single mother. Eventually, the rejection emails stopped coming because many companies stopped responding altogether. Maria sold her jewelry. Then her television. Then most of the furniture in her apartment. Finally, she moved with Lily into a small one-bedroom rental where the heater rattled all night and the kitchen window refused to close properly. One evening, Lily opened the refrigerator and stared inside. There was half a carton of milk, 1 apple, and a jar of peanut butter. She looked at her mother and asked if they could make pancakes. Maria smiled, even though her eyes were burning. She told Lily they would have something special soon. That night, after her daughter fell asleep, Maria sat on the kitchen floor and cried silently. She cried not because she had a Harvard degree and no job, but because she had spent her entire life believing education could protect her from hardship. Now she understood that sometimes life does not care how hard you worked. The next morning, Maria searched for food assistance programs. It took her nearly an hour to convince herself to apply. She hated the idea. She felt ashamed. She imagined people judging her, wondering how a woman with a Harvard degree could possibly need help buying groceries. But then she looked at Lily. And she filled out the application. That was how she ended up sitting across from caseworker Evelyn Carter. Evelyn had worked at the assistant's office for more than 25 years. She had seen families arrive frightened, angry, exhausted, and hopeless. She had learned not to judge people by their clothes or circumstances. But when she opened Maria's file, something caught her attention. Education, Harvard University. Evelyn looked at Maria. Then she looked back at the screen. Her eyes moved down the page. Employment history. Public policy. Community development. Leadership awards. Academic honors. Then Evelyn noticed the date of Maria's last employment. She froze. It was the same date Evelyn remembered from an old case involving a non-profit organization that had helped her own grandson years earlier. Evelyn quietly searched the archived records. There it was. Maria Bennett had once volunteered for a community housing initiative that had helped hundreds of struggling families. One of those families had been Evelyn's daughter. Evelyn remembered the young woman who had stayed late after meetings, helping families fill out forms and find temporary housing. She remembered Maria bringing sandwiches for people who had waited all afternoon. She had never known that woman would one day sit on the other side of the desk. Maria began explaining that she did not want special treatment. She only wanted enough assistance to make sure Lily could eat while she searched for work. Evelyn listened carefully. Then she did something Maria never expected. She closed the file and told Maria that needing help did not erase everything she had accomplished. Evelyn explained that the purpose of the program was not to punish people for falling. It existed because sometimes good people simply needed someone to help them stand again. Maria received temporary food assistance. But Evelyn didn't stop there. She contacted a local workforce program and told them about Maria's experience. Within weeks, Maria was invited to interview for a position with a nonprofit organization focused on helping unemployed parents return to the workforce. The interview changed everything. Maria was hired as a community program coordinator. Her first paycheck was modest, but when she came home with groceries, Lily ran toward her and wrapped both arms around her legs. Maria knelt down and cried. Not because she was rich again. Not because everything was suddenly perfect. She cried because, for the first time in years, she could breathe. Months later, Maria returned to the assistant's office, not as someone asking for help, but as a volunteer helping other families complete their applications. One afternoon, she saw a frightened young father sitting alone in the waiting room. He looked ashamed and kept staring at the floor. Maria sat beside him. She told him that needing help did not make him a failure. Sometimes, she said, the strongest thing a person can do is admit they cannot carry everything alone. Evelyn watched from across the room and smiled. Maria had once believed her Harvard degree was the most valuable thing she carried into that office. She eventually realized it wasn't. The most valuable thing she carried was her willingness to keep going. And Lily's simple drawing from that first day remained taped above Maria's desk. It showed a little house, a mother, a daughter, and a bright yellow sun above them. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who may be struggling silently, and subscribe to Humanity Tales. Sometimes one small act of kindness can remind someone that their story is not over. And before you leave, comment "Everyone deserves a second chance" if you believe that asking for help should never be a source of shame. Because Maria learned something that changed her life forever, falling on hard times does not make you worthless. Sometimes the person sitting across from you at the help desk isn't looking at your failure, they're looking at the person you still have the power to become.